Have you ever looked at a Catholic church and an Orthodox church and thought they were practically the same? At first glance, the rituals, the icons, and even the prayers might seem alike. But what if I told you that beneath the surface, these two branches of Christianity are separated by centuries of theological debate, cultural differences, and even political conflicts? This division isn't just about doctrine. It shaped the entire course of Christian history, influencing how millions of people worship today. From the authority of the Pope to the way they celebrate communion, the differences between Catholicism and Orthodoxy run deeper than most people realize. But why did this split happen? And how do these two traditions truly differ in their beliefs and practices? Stay with me until the end, and I promise you'll never see these two churches the same way again. If you're enjoying this deep dive into history and theology, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Not only does it help this content reach more people, but it also ensures you won't miss out on more fascinating videos like this one. Now that you have already subscribed and liked the video, let's dive in. Imagine a world where the Great Schism never happened, where Catholics and Orthodox Christians remained united under one church. How different would Christianity look today? Would the Pope still hold supreme authority? Would Orthodox traditions have influenced Western Christianity in ways we can't even imagine? The split between Catholicism and Orthodoxy wasn't just a religious disagreement. It changed the course of history. It shaped nations, fueled wars, and influenced the beliefs of millions of people across the centuries. And even today, the effects of this division can still be felt in global Christianity. If this separation had never occurred, perhaps the Christian world would be more unified. But because it did, two distinct traditions emerged, each with its own unique doctrines, rituals, and ways of understanding faith. So, what really caused the split? And what are the key differences that still exist between these two branches of Christianity today? Let's find out. To understand the differences between Catholicism and Orthodoxy, we need to go back nearly 1,000 years to one of the most defining moments in Christian history, the Great Schism of 1054. At the time, Christianity was largely divided between two powerful centers, Rome in the west and Constantinople in the east. These two branches had coexisted for centuries, but tensions had been building. Political conflicts, cultural differences, and theological disagreements had created a growing divide between Western and Eastern Christians. One of the biggest issues was authority. The Bishop of Rome, known as the Pope, claimed supreme authority over all Christians. But the Eastern Church, led by the Patriarch of Constantinople, rejected this idea. Instead of a single leader ruling over the entire church, the Orthodox tradition believed that authority should be shared among multiple patriarchs, with each having equal power. Another major dispute was over doctrine, particularly the Filioque controversy. The Latin Church had added a phrase to the Nicene Creed, stating that the Holy Spirit proceeds from both the Father and the Son, Filioque in Latin. The Eastern Church strongly opposed this, arguing that it changed the original teaching of the early Church. But the final breaking point came in 1054, when Pope Leo IX sent a delegation to Constantinople to assert Rome's authority. The situation escalated quickly. In a dramatic move, the Pope's envoy, Cardinal Humbert, marched into the Hagia Sophia, one of the most sacred churches in the East, and placed a document of excommunication on the altar, officially cutting off the Eastern Church from Rome. In response, the Patriarch of Constantinople, Michael Cerularius, excommunicated the Pope's delegation. This marked the official split between the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church, a division that remains to this day. While there were later attempts at reconciliation, the damage was done. Over the centuries, the Catholic and Orthodox churches continued to develop separately, each shaping distinct traditions, beliefs, and ways of worshiping. But what exactly are the theological and doctrinal differences that set these two traditions apart? Let's explore that in the next section. Now that we understand how the Great Schism happened, let's dive into the major theological and doctrinal differences that still separate Catholicism and Orthodoxy today. While both traditions share fundamental Christian beliefs, such as faith in Jesus Christ, the authority of the Bible, and the importance of sacraments, the way they interpret and practice their faith has developed in very distinct ways. 1. The authority of the Pope versus the patriarchs. One of the biggest differences is the role of leadership in the Church. In Catholicism, the Pope, as the Bishop of Rome, is considered the supreme authority over all Christians. Catholics believe that the Pope is a successor of St. Peter, whom Jesus called the rock on which he would build his church. Matthew 16, verse 18. The Pope is seen as infallible when making official teachings on faith and morals. In Orthodoxy, there is no single supreme leader. Instead, authority is shared among multiple patriarchs, with the ecumenical patriarch of Constantinople being the first among equals. Orthodox Christians reject the idea of papal infallibility and believe that leadership should be more decentralized, following the model of the early Church. 2. The Filioque controversy. One of the theological disputes that fueled the Great Schism was the addition of the Latin word filioque and the Son to the Nicene Creed. Catholics believe that the Holy Spirit proceeds from both the Father and the Son, an idea that was officially added to the Creed in the Western Church. Orthodox Christians, however, reject this addition. They maintain that the Holy Spirit proceeds only from the Father, as originally stated in the early Christian creeds. They argue that the Catholic change was made without a proper council and altered the original teachings of the Church. 3. Original sin and salvation. The two traditions also differ in how they understand original sin and its effects on humanity. In Catholicism, original sin is seen as a hereditary condition that all humans inherit from Adam and Eve. It is believed to stain the soul, making baptism necessary for salvation. In Orthodoxy, original sin is not seen as an inherited guilt, but rather as a tendency towards sin that affects human nature. Orthodox Christians believe that sin separates people from God, but they emphasize spiritual healing over legal atonement. 4. The Eucharist and the use of bread. Both Catholic and Orthodox Christians believe in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist, but their practices differ. Catholics use unleavened bread, similar to what Jesus used at the Last Supper, and believe in transubstantiation, meaning that the bread and wine are literally transformed into the body and blood of Christ. Orthodox Christians use leavened bread, which they believe symbolizes the risen Christ. They also believe in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist, but they do not use the term transubstantiation. Instead, they view the transformation as a mystery beyond human explanation. 5. Clerical celibacy and marriage. Another key difference is whether priests can marry. In Catholicism, priests in the Latin Church are required to be celibate, meaning they cannot marry. However, there are some exceptions for married clergy in Eastern Catholic churches. In Orthodoxy, priests can marry as long as they do so before ordination. However, bishops are always chosen from among celibate monks. 6. Purgatory versus afterlife in Orthodoxy. Catholics and Orthodox Christians also have different views on what happens after death. Catholics believe in purgatory, a temporary state where souls are purified before entering heaven. They also believe that prayers and masses can help souls move from purgatory to paradise. Orthodox Christians do not believe in purgatory. Instead, they believe in a process of the soul's journey after death, where it undergoes a period of purification, but without the structured concept of purgatory found in Catholicism. Beyond theology and doctrine, Catholicism and Orthodoxy also differ significantly in their rituals, traditions, and the way they conduct worship services. These differences are deeply rooted in history and culture, shaping the experience of believers in each tradition. Let's explore some of the most notable contrasts in how these two branches of Christianity practice their faith in daily life and in religious ceremonies. 1. The Divine Liturgy versus a Catholic Mass. One of the most visible differences between Catholicism and Orthodoxy is how their religious services are conducted. In Catholicism, the primary service is called the Mass, which follows a structured order with prayers, Bible readings, a sermon, and the Eucharist. The Latin Rite Mass, especially after Vatican II, has become more simplified and often uses local languages instead of Latin. In Orthodoxy, the main service is called the Divine Liturgy, and it is much more elaborate. The Liturgy of St. John Chrysostom, used in most Orthodox churches, is filled with incense, chanting, and highly symbolic rituals. The service can last 2 to 3 hours, compared to the 1-hour structure of most Catholic Masses. Another key difference is that in Orthodox liturgies, most prayers and chants are sung, while Catholic Masses often incorporate spoken prayers. 2. The role of icons in religious art. Both Catholics and Orthodox Christians use religious images, but they approach them in different ways. Catholics use statues, painting, and stained glass to depict saints, biblical events, and religious figures. While they do venerate images, the focus is more on their symbolic meaning rather than a direct spiritual connection. Orthodox Christians use icons, which are sacred images painted in a specific traditional style. Icons are not just decorations. They are considered a window into the divine, and believers kiss, bow, and light candle before them as an act of veneration. The Orthodox Church also has a strict tradition of iconostasis, a decorated screen that separates the altar from the congregation. This symbolizes a division between heaven and earth and plays a major role in Orthodox worship. 3. The sign of the cross. Even the way Catholics and Orthodox Christians make the sign of the cross is different. Catholics touch their forehead, chest, left shoulder, and then right shoulder. Orthodox Christians touch their forehead, chest, right shoulder first, and then left shoulder. This subtle difference is a result of different theological and cultural traditions that developed after the Great Schism. 4. Fasting and religious observances. Fasting plays an important role in both traditions, but Orthodox Christians follow much stricter fasting rules than Catholics. Catholics traditionally fast on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday, and abstain from meat on Fridays during Lent. However, in modern practice, these fasting rules are often relaxed. Orthodox Christians observe multiple fasting periods throughout the year, including Great Lent, the Nativity Fast, the Apostles' Fast, and the Dormition Fast. During fasting periods, Orthodox believers abstain from meat, dairy, and sometimes even fish, oil, and wine, following a much stricter discipline. Fasting in Orthodoxy is seen as a way to purify the body and soul, while in Catholicism, it is more symbolic of penance and sacrifice. 5. The role of Mary and the saints. Both Catholics and Orthodox Christians venerate Mary and the saints, but their perspectives differ. Catholics believe in Immaculate Conception, the idea that Mary was born without original sin. They also emphasize her role as mediatrix and co-redemptrix, meaning she plays an intercessory role in salvation. Orthodox Christians honor Mary as a Theotokos, God-bearer, but reject the concept of the Immaculate Conception. They see her as uniquely holy, but emphasize her humanity more than Catholics do. Both traditions pray to saints and believe they intercede on behalf of the faithful. But Orthodox Christians rely more on the collective prayers of the Church rather than individual devotions like the Catholic Rosary. 6. Marriage and divorce in the Church. Catholics and Orthodox Christians have different approaches to marriage, especially regarding divorce and remarriage. Catholicism teaches that marriage is indissoluble, meaning that once a couple is married in the Church, they cannot divorce and remarry unless they receive an annulment, a declaration that the marriage was never valid. Orthodoxy allows for divorce and remarriage in certain cases, particularly when a marriage has irreparably broken down. However, second and third marriages are seen as penitential and are performed with a less celebratory tone. This difference stems from Orthodox Christianity's emphasis on economia, a principle that allows for pastoral flexibility in applying church laws. For nearly 1,000 years, Catholicism and Orthodoxy have stood as two distinct branches of Christianity, each preserving its own traditions, doctrines, and ways of worship. From the authority of the Pope versus the Patriarchs, to the Filioque controversy, theological differences, and unique worship practices, this division has shaped not only religious beliefs, but also entire cultures and nations. But despite these differences, both Catholics and Orthodox Christians share a common foundation: faith in Jesus Christ, the sacraments, and a commitment to preserving the teachings of the early Church. Over the past century, there have been attempts at reconciliation, and dialogue between the two churches continues. Could there ever be a future where this 1,000-year-old schism is healed? Only time will tell. What do you think? Should Catholicism and Orthodoxy seek full unity, or are their differences too great? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history and theology, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. It helps us bring you more thought-provoking content about Christianity and its impact on the world. See you in the next video.